Hello, everybody. Welcome to our weekly integration sync. Today, we're going to give some updates on the work we've been doing on archiving and validating the history of .sama, which we're getting close to releasing. So let's start off with Ved, if you want to update us on what we're doing on the runtime side.
Hey everyone. Okay, runtime side. Uh, the only thing that happened that needs to talk about was we disabled balance transfers on the testnet, so that would avoid us to not have any kind of other markets when when the incentivized testing goes live. That is a major one that we did last week. There was a small bug fix that we did where we were not able to import finalized blocks because the justifications were coming for their descendants rather than the actual blocks itself. But that in grandpa that is pretty much expected because the finality happens over a range of blocks rather than individual blocks itself. So and again there is certain substrate caching that's in works there, but the end of the story would be like in order to import a block, you could either provide a justification for that block or the descendant of its block that was the latest in the authority set that it was produced in. So if there is a different authority set, then you would need to have to change the authorities as well. So that's a very quick fix on that. And the other changes that we were talking is content-based addressing on the feeds itself. There is a PR out there. Hopefully that gets landed in the next few days. So along with the existing indexing of substrate-based blocks or parachain or relation blocks, we also want to have a content-based object storage as well, and we should bring back that once it lands. And post that, we want to start looking at syncing the relation blocks from the Genesis. And there are some other changes that we want to make, hopefully in the next few days. And we should be ready to start archiving .sama.
Awesome. Okay. So Nizar, you're going to create a ticket, or these two different issues that reflect the initial version of sync and then the backwards version of sync.
Yes, and specifically when we say that this is like eventual goal and this is the initial one, those are separate things. Like they don't need to be done all at once because that's something something that happens sometimes. And then we spend a lot of time doing like the eventual goal while we wanted to ship MVP first.
Yeah. Yeah, and sometimes we speak about the eventual goal and it just gets heard as that's what we should be doing now. So we probably need to be more careful about speaking about the eventual goal as well. Okay, Vet. Great. So yeah, if you can make it your priority as soon as we have that issue to get that refactored such that it supports this kind of initial sync that we want to have, and we can talk more about at the end about what the full picture, full deployment is going to look like. Any other questions or comments for Ben? Okay, Serge, if you want to go next.
Sure. So, okay, on regarding issue with timeout on test A, I created a PR on Polka.js and submitted. So far, no response, but yeah, I will give it some time, and if there will be no response, I will ping maintainer. Apart from that, I have updated Relayer UI because yeah, apparently I will take over the code base. So I added I think four last parachains: Sora, Turing, Nodal, and Equilibrium to UI. And yeah, the PR submitted. Once PR is merged, I will update the board. I also created a small refactoring cleanup PR for Relayer UI because there was some things I didn't like custom types because we don't need them anymore, and some other optimizations. Yeah, and regarding feed validation, I as I mentioned on Monday, I managed to make put calls work. I fixed decoding and conversion blocks to binaries, so everything works okay. At least because I'm using the local node with the branch, which is not main, because that branch contains some fix by that. So in that branch, it works okay. And yeah, most of the changes that required for feed validation on Relayer are in the PR, which it was draft PR previously, and I converted it to the real one. There might be some changes due to like updates that will be in the following days by WED, but yeah, most of the stuff it's already there. Yeah, I guess that's all.
Okay, thanks for the update, Serge, and thanks for stepping up and taking over the front end for the relayer. Appreciate that. Okay, so I just want to go through the critical path here to make sure that we're all on the same page. For what the goal is basically to have on testnet feeds validation deployed, like new version of testnet that has feeds validation at some point that we determine when we turn it on. So in order to do that, Nazar is going to create an issue describing what the requirements are. VED, you're going to go in and update the runtime to reflect the ability to have this two-stage kind of validation pipeline or two versions of validation that we're going to run sequentially. After those runtime changes have been updated, then Serge, you're going to go through and just do a final check to make sure this is all supported correctly by the relayer itself. And then we're going to need to run, and so then those are sort of two separate PRs, one on the mono repo. Well, I guess the relayer's separate application, yeah. So two separate PRs that have got to get approved. And Nazar, are you the approver, the final approver on both of those?
I think so, but I would like for that to also review it.
Okay, awesome. And then we need to do some testing of this as well. What is the current testing framework? Are we running this locally, Serge, or how are we confirming this before we deploy it?
We're using like a unit test framework for Relayer, and like for the whole flow, I do manual testing.
Okay, like locally on your machine, or in the cloud? Okay.
Yeah, locally on my machine.
Okay, cool. So you'll be testing that to make sure it works. And then once both PRs are approved and merged, and we're confident that the tests are working, then we will have to do a forkless runtime upgrade to testnet, right?
So we don't do dev environment anymore.
I thought we were calling the dev environment, the testnet, the dev environment, at least to start with.
That's where the confusion comes from. We had farmnet, testnet, and one single dev, which we are basically not using for the most part. So when we start calling testnet dev, it becomes more confusing.
I have one last question though, Nazar. For the testnet that's currently running, is it running on the same snapshot, the latest snapshot that we release as well?
Test A, which is inactive right now, yes. Test B is very old. It runs a snapshot from January 5th.
Okay. Then we may have to do a client upgrade first before we do a runtime upgrade then.
Sorry, what do you mean inactive? It's also right.
I mean, the default which we are pointing to is test B. And test A is like in the background. No one knows.
Not the public one.
Yeah.
Okay. So I guess what we need to do, and I'm sorry, I misspoke. There's no forkless runtime upgrade here. Because what we really need to do is just point test A to the front end, to the website. So that's what people see. And then we need to just restart test B with the latest. So there's really no upgrade because we're not doing like a hot swap or I mean, we're not doing an upgrade on the existing test net. We're just going to do this blue-green deployment. Yeah, so I'm sorry. I probably confused. We could
still do a runtime upgrade on the farm net.
Yeah.
We could so that we.
But that's orthogonal to this conversation here about farm net.
Yeah, that's completely away. I just want to like not take us the focus off of the runtime upgrade so that we all used to that. But yes.
Okay. Okay, cool. So we point test. So test A is synced up to the head right now.
Actually,
No.
I'm just looking at it. It seems to have stuck completely. Like I have it open for 7 minutes and I haven't seen any block archived since. And on the test B, most of the feeds, or like some of the feeds, are working and some of them are also stuck for 7 minutes. So I think something somewhere is off, but it should be fixable. And it's not very far away, like it's a few gigabytes away from the other one.
Yeah.
But it's not up to date, definitely.
Yeah, I was about to check why it's taking longer.
Okay, so it's close. So I think we'll hopefully be able to resolve that. Point test A to live, and then start like wipe test B, reload it with the latest client, the latest merge PR, and then we have to sync the 200 gigabytes or whatever it is, 280 gigabytes of history of .sama. And so we do have the ability at least to have a longer 1 second block time right now. And that's great. I think we should just go with that. I know you're working on this side task, Ved, of trying to see if we can make it even shorter. We don't need to have that solved before we deploy this. It's great if we can solve it in the future though.
But we could start with at least cutting down by half, maybe. I'm not sure if Nazar has any concern over there, reducing the slot duration by another 500 milliseconds.
We can't unless we can upgrade it later, but we don't want that to
let's not touch it for now.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
Unless we know that we can make it upgradable, we don't want to just change the constant to be lower because that would have weird side effects.
Yeah, okay, cool.
Okay, so then we have to sync. The assumption, I think, the last calculation, that would take like 3 days, 3 to 4 days to sync. And then feeds validation should kick into effect and it should work. And then we can switch test B to be what we point to. And it's sounding like that will be like middle of next week, best case scenario. Assuming that we get everything completed this week and we can start the sync Friday or sometime this weekend.
Yeah, depends on how long it takes to sync, but I think it sounds about right.
Okay, awesome. Cool. Well, that's exciting. Okay, any questions, comments on that? Okay, great.
So maybe we should remove, dev environment, because we're
if you're not using, let's not pay for it, sure.
Yeah,
I was just thinking maybe someone is using it for something, but doesn't seem like.
We don't need a dev environment. Let's test our code in production.
Exactly.
Yeah. YOLO.
Okay, cool. Well, we're currently interviewing chain ops, so hopefully this will all get resolved soon. Okay. Anything else, Serge?
No. No.
Great. Okay, Skylar, we'll turn it over to you if you'd like to give us an update on the parachain onboarding.
Yeah, sure. Hey, everyone. Pretty tame week in the .sama ecosystem. We had no new parachains winning auctions this week. Polkadot took a break, and then we had Pichu win last week. So we'll have new parachains on Sunday. There'll actually be 2 on April 24th that will win. So that's about it on the auction side. And then on our end, we added Sora, Turing, and Equilibrium onto the back end. And it sounds like we already have a solution for getting them added to the front end. Otherwise, we're just waiting on Mangata, Pichu, Fala, and Unique to be ready to be onboarded onto the back end. And then, of course, Kilt still has, they won their slot. They won a new slot. to transfer over their old one. But that lease ends in August, so they have any time between now and August to make that transition. Otherwise, it's just making announcements on the business side. Pretty calm week.
Did you say some of these you'd actually already gotten added to the front end search?
Sorry?
I think you'd said there were like 3 or 4 that you'd gotten added to the front end, or those, is that any of those?
Yeah, so I have added Nodal, or was it? Or maybe not Fala, maybe Fala. I have added Fala, Equilibrium, Turing, and Sora on UI.
Yeah, so those can just go into the A1 tab, Sky.
No,
Okay.
it's not.
Okay,
it's
I
not,
don't see them in the interface.
It's not merged yet. I submitted PR.
Okay. So it's just these ones.
Okay.
So
And
maybe
are we waiting on those?
maybe you can remove Leo column and put me on both, like front end and back end.
Yeah.
No, just remove the column completely.
Yeah, this needs to be redone a little bit for the process, but we could do just this one column for both of them to be done. Then once it's fully done, we can move over to add to the schedule. That should work.
And those 4 that are waiting to onboard, are we waiting on those to get added to on finality, or for them to have RPC and points?
These I haven't checked yet. I'm not sure they're producing blocks already. Like Sora, they have public endpoint, but there are no blocks, so it's 0.
Okay, so Sora's actually in the other column.
Yeah, I will check on these new. If they're ready, then we can add them.
Okay.
Cool. Any more questions about this? This is a pretty simple week. Cool.
No, thank you, Scott.
Thanks, guys. No problem.
Okay. Next topic, Ethereum integration. Go ahead, Scott.
Can we like a small question regarding like pull requests for UI? Do we still need like because I know Nazar doesn't like UI pull requests usually. So
Doesn't mean I'm not doing them, but yeah.
So we keep the same workflow for UI related stuff.
Is there anybody else on the team who has a good JavaScript experience that we can make a secondary viewer? I see that you're like, not me, don't pick me.
I can do that, but I'm not sure how productive I'll be. But I think I would be on the same boat as Nazar, right? But yeah, I can totally.
No, I know JavaScript really well. I don't really like know React and these kinds of things.
Yeah, me too. So that's a different. But I can give a second hand if you need me though. Happy to look at it.
Okay, just assign us both. If you are feeling good,
Okay.
then we'll merge it.
Okay, cool. Thanks.
Okay. I'm trying to remember, do Yvonne or Shamil, do they have any JavaScript experience? I think they're pretty much just backend, right?
Probably.
Yeah. Okay. Okay, anything else, Serge? No, okay. All right, do we have any updates on Ethereum integration? Wasn't expecting any, but just thought I'd ask.
No.
No.
On my end, I did some initial research. We can, on the runtime side, I think it should be pretty straightforward. But with the current, so the problem with Ethereum light client or Ethereum node importing is that even the light client is big enough. Like the cache light client class itself is like around 60 MB or 70 MB right now to put it on runtime. So there are a few ways to actually like even generate like a Merkle proof out of that particular that cache and then prove that on runtime. But that one limits us to just only 2 years worth of ETH blocks validation. So the cache that they provide is between a very specific set of eras, and I think each one is around 15,000 blocks. So that's almost what like 2 years worth of Ethereum blocks, and the root blocks that we verify on chain only like will only come from will only be verified between those eras. So like if you want to verify the next era, we would have to re-push those root blocks later. But considering that they are moving to POS, it should be fine. But the previous blocks is something that we'd have to look at. Like that's some other way. I'm thinking like if we want to redo the re-update the root blocks till the beginning of it, even before the ETH hash comes into picture. I think, yeah, I haven't thought fully about how we archive those.
Maybe we can apply the same approach as in Polkadot-like chains, where we like start validating at some later point and then just upload everything else by hash.
Yeah.
How long is the cache valid for, or how often does it update?
So it's I'm not sure how many era ranges that the cache is valid for, but it is usually valid between some few number of eras in which all the blocks, like around 1,500 blocks in each era, falls under, through which they produce a POW out of. And again, the full node clients, they expand the data of based off this cache to produce a full set, and light clients use directly this to verify that, and we generate the Merkle proof out of this particular client cache to verify that this particular root belongs to that. I think you would say like 2 years worth of Ethereum blocks, I guess. ETH hash Rust library is one that does it. I have to check how many root blocks that they have or where they started from to check if like what's the current state of it.
Okay, I guess it's been a long time since I've looked at Ethash, but I thought that there was something where it was like continuously updating the cache, like as new blocks were generated.
Yeah.
Like
The light
incrementally.
clients does that. Light clients does that, but on the runtime we cannot. We cannot regenerate the full hash for ourselves. It's going to be like 60 MB or 70 MB. So
Right.
whenever we regenerate the cache, we have to regenerate the root hashes of that and then push it back to the runtime. So the new proofs coming from the new cache can already be validated on runtime.
Right. Okay. Yeah, it's a huge pain in the ass. Okay, so what? So Ethereum has the beacon chain right now, which is proof of stake, and then they have the Ethereum main chain, which is proof of work, and they're getting ready to do the merge, where they're going to dock this execution chain. It's going to be like the main execution shard of the new ETH network. At which point they're going to switch off proof of work, and they're just going to follow the proof of stake consensus on the beacon chain, right?
Yeah. At that point, we'd have to move to POS as well. So
right.
There's like two different verifications that we have to do.
And in that sense, the execution chain of Ethereum right now, like ETH1, is basically like a parachain almost of, or like a shard of the Ethereum beacon chain, right?
Yeah.
I mean, please, if you guys know any better than me, correct me if I'm wrong. I'm just going off what I remember from what I read in the news, what I hear on the podcasts.
Yeah, that's all I have information on. Anything beyond that, we have to wait and see how especially how to verify the POS, like if they have any finality starting immediately, or if they won't, I'm like, we have to wait and see.
Yeah, I think most people care about the proof of work chain right now. And once the transition happens, that will be like a separate chunk of work, I think.
Ouch. Like that's been too long, but okay.
I get the impression that it's going to happen like any day now. Like it's almost there, like maybe next week.
It's been like that for like half a year at least.
Like 2 years.
So like I heard summer the next like target, but like whether it will happen on June 1st or August 31st, I don't know.
I just don't want to run in front of the recording, but yeah, it's been like too long.
Sure. Yeah. Okay. Well, I mean, I know they've been talking about it for a while, but it feels like, just from what I've been following, it's like going to happen any day now. Like supposedly it's almost there. Like really, they're not just talking about it being at some point in the future. Like it's almost there. If that's the case, then probably all this proof of work stuff is just going to be deprecated. And I think that if I understand even the way that Ethereum clients are going to work, is there's going to be like these checkpoints that they're going to use to bootstrap off of. and then you're just going to go with the validator set from that checkpoint and then use that for validation going forward. And I would imagine that somebody is already working on this in .sama, like how to do beacon chain validation, you know, in a parachain or in the runtime in Substrate. I would be surprised if we're the first people to look at this.
So the best guess would be Snowbridge, Snowfork, because they want to be the direct integration with ETH. So if that is not the main chain, so they'd have to obviously fork to the beacon chain. When I looked at it last week, maybe if something happened this week, I'm not sure, but up until last week, there wasn't no indication. Actually, they actually made more efforts into making it efficient for them to verify POW. But that is as much of like the changes. We can look at Moonbeam if they're doing something there, because I remember they were working on some bridges to the Ethereum directly through their own some form of bridge mechanism. But I guess we have to see how that goes.
Okay, maybe post a question in Builders Chat and ask if anybody is working on a bridge to Ethereum proof of stake that we could look at, and let them know that we'd be interested in partnering with them on working on implementation of that, because we need it.
Yeah. Cool.
I think ideally, like if in the next, I would say 3 months, there's going to be the merge happens and they're going to actually switch off proof of work, then we would just completely forget about any proof of work validation. We would just validate the proof of stake beacon chain and not even have like backwards compatibility where we go through and validate the proof of work. Like we would just have, you know, the checkpoint that social consensus has come to, you know, that's kind of the model that Ethereum works under anyways. So, I mean, we could do it all just to show that we can do it and like write all this code and like validate everything and every single proof of work from Genesis. But I think it's just going to be sort of a demonstration of, you know, engineering capability, but at the end of the day, it's not going to make a difference if anyone uses that bridge or not, if we have that or not.
I agree. Makes sense.
Okay. Okay, cool. All right, anything else you guys want to discuss? Okay, well, thanks a lot, everyone. Go ahead.
One last question. Considering that like the current implementation or the current progress that we'll be making on the grandpa is on the feeds one is done, like do we at least start to estimate the timeline on when we want to start looking at Ethereum as a potential feed process as well? Like I know we've discussed that there is some more information required, but I was thinking like if we could put some time down on it so that we know that whether we can start by that point or we just need to push it down the line, depending on things that are not in our control.
Yeah, absolutely. That was actually the next thing that we were going to discuss.
Okay, cool.
Okay, thanks a lot, everybody. We will see you guys next week.